Hello, good morning, and welcome to Morning Musings, where we talk about whatever's been on my mind that morning. Hi, as you can see, I am home, and my hair is looking a little rough, but we're gonna ignore that. I am the Angelic Rainbow Oracle. I'm a psychic medium and a universal channel. And yeah, if you want to know what that is, ask me about it in the comments. So, this is really funny. I actually, found a book a notebook that I was writing in a long time ago. I mean, it's been a long time ago. And I was kind of reading through it, and I feel like I want to share some of this with you guys because these were things that I learned, and at one point I was trying to help other people understand. And so that's kind of what a lot of this is. So this is, I guess, this one is about dysregulation. So what is that? Dysregulation is a failure to regulate properly. It refers to impairment of a physiological regulatory mechanism or a poor ability to manage emotional responses. Emotional dysregulation can affect people with various disorders and involves unhealthy patterns of emotional coping, outbursts of emotions, and difficulty expressing emotions. Signs of it can be overly intense emotions, impulsive behaviors, lack of emotional awareness, trouble making decisions, inability to manage behavior, avoid difficult emotions, focusing on the negative or ruminating. Usually you grow out of this in adulthood, but it can still come in adulthood. So coping mechanisms, if they're not built in childhood, so for example, if you had parents that really did not know how to self-regulate, they yelled a lot, they lashed out a lot, you had a lot of fear, chances are that you may not have been given the tools to actually emotionally regulate because those people also didn't know how. You can't teach what you don't know, right? And so a lot of times as we get older, we think that we're just bad people, or why are we angry all the time, all of this. And we tend to really beat ourselves up about it. And in all actuality, it's because there's this very important core thing that we just were not taught, and we grew up without it, watching other people and how they operated and thinking that that is how we should be. So basically, you don't even realize that you're dysregulated as much as you are because you don't know what regulation looks like. All right. This leads to a lifetime of struggles, including problems with interpersonal relationships, school performances, and the inability to function effectively in a job or at work. So, what triggers dysregulation? There can be multiple triggers. However, research has consistently shown that early psychological trauma resulting from abuse or neglect on the part of the caregiver, which can result in reactive attachment disorder. Also, if the parent or caregiver had trouble regulating their own emotions, things like that, they may not have been able to teach the child. So if you grew up with people that didn't know it, they didn't teach it, or you grew up in probably not great circumstances, situationship with your family, and that could have led to this type of emotional dysregulation because you were emotionally dysregulated all the time, right? Dysregulation is not necessarily a mental disorder, but it is most associated with the following disorders. So if you're somebody who has these, or you think you suspect to have them, you could also have be a dysregulated person, and looking into that might help you, right? So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, some autism spectrum disorders, bipolar disorders, borderline personality disorders, BPD, complex post-traumatic stress disorders or complex PTSD, disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, fetal alcohol syndrome, FAS. When emotional dysregulation appears with these, it typically involves a heightened sensitivity to emotional stimuli and a lessened ability to return to a normal emotional state within a reasonable time. So what that means is that a lot of times the way that this is shown is that really heightened, it's like an overload. So like if you struggle with sensitivity, like literal sensitivity, voice, sound sensitivity, it can literally overload your entire nervous system and cause an actual kind of like breakdown. That is, it's not even voluntary. You're not doing it for attention. You're doing it because your system is overloaded and dysregulated. And without being able to pull yourself back into regulation, you can sometimes stay in that space of dysregulation for a really long time. Okay, for like, an unreasonable amount of time. So if you're angry for an unreasonable amount of time, that's not usually true anger. That's dysregulation. That means that you don't know how to channel that or sit with it and process it properly. Okay. So here are some examples. Your romantic partner cancels plans and you decide they must not love you, and you end up crying all night, binging on junk food. The bank teller says they can't help you with a particular transaction and you'll need to come back the next day. You have an angry outburst, yell at the teller, and throw a pen across the counter at them. You attend a company dinner and everyone seems to be talking and having fun while you feel like an outsider. After the event, you go home and overeat on a substance to numb your emotional pain. This is also an example of poor coping mechanisms and emotional eating, which is something that I struggled with prior to doing a lot of that work. Tell them about okay, so I put in here a notation to tell you guys about something. I'll tell you guys this another time. So emotional dysregulation can also mean that you feel confused by your emotions or have trouble recognizing the emotions that you are experiencing, and when you become upset. This could leave you feeling guilty or overwhelmed by your emotions to the point where you can't make decisions or manage your behavior. And so it's kind of like not realizing that there's actually a name for what's going on, and that it's not just you being a bad person can lead you to literally beat yourself into a pulp on a daily basis because you just think you're a horrible person, right? So all of that guilt, all of this stuff. So there's a few things that I do. Since we're talking about this dysregulation, there are a few things that I have done to implement that have allowed me to help with some of this in my own life. One of those things is breathing. Okay, this is what I call the 30-second pause. When something happens that triggers you, that upsets you, that makes you feel some kind of way, you need to pause before you respond. Take 30 seconds to take some deep breaths. If after 30 seconds you still feel triggered, angry, all of that, before you respond, and this is key, especially when you're in a workplace, okay? Before you respond, take a moment to take that 30-minute pause or that 30-second pause. And if you are still not regulated, meaning you still haven't centered to a place of calmness, you need to step away. And you can tell somebody, okay? You can say that. If something happens in the moment, you are an adult or you are a person with sovereignty, you are allowed to say, I don't have the capacity to handle this right now. I need to step away until I can process what I just heard. And literally step away. You do not owe anybody answers in the moment. You do not, and there are people who actually capitalize on that, right? Like if you have a narcissist in your life, when you're emotionally dysregulated, they're going to continue to drive at you until they get the result, which is an answer. But that answer, because it's not coming from a centered place, you haven't had time to consider what it really means, what the outcome of that is. You haven't really centered yourself. So you're making decisions in, out of survival mechanism, right? And that's what a lot of people capitalize on in manipulation tactics. So I bring that up because it's so important to understand that, guys, it's not just that we're bad people. It's that we were not given those tools, or we don't even know that that's wrong. But if any of that sounds like you, maybe pause, take a moment. This is not a subject that we're going to let up on now that I have my little book here. I'm going to read more to you guys throughout the next several days and all of that. But understand that if this is you, I see you. And I am you. And I've been you. And yes, you can change. And yes, it can get better. Okay? And I will have no problem in later videos kind of starting to teach you guys how. Love you.